I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Welcome back to Focus Today, and let me ask you a question. Do you think the Second Amendment was a big issue during this election cycle? Did it play out through all of the red counties that you saw in every state? Well, I'm delighted to have back with us today our good friend Erich Pratt. He's the Director of Communications for Gun Owners of America, and you can go to gunowners.org. That's their website, gunowners.org. Erich, good to see you, my friend. How you doing?
Oh, it's great to be back with you, Perry.
Well, listen, everybody thought that the Second Amendment was one of the big issues in this campaign. Your take?
Well, it most certainly was, and we were delighted with the results because things would have been it would have been the death knell of the Second Amendment had Hillary been elected. Look, this was a woman who wanted to put on the deciding vote onto the Supreme Court to overturn the Heller case. Of course, the Heller case from 2008, which affirmed that Americans have an individual right to keep and bear arms. She says the court got it wrong. She wanted that overturned. She liked what Australia had done with their mandatory confiscation. She said we should try that here. And she also said that Obama hadn't been aggressive enough, using enough executive orders to Second Amendment. So she obviously, it's interesting. An election aggressively campaigning for gun control. It just simply hasn't happened, and here's yet another example. So truly, the Second Amendment did have a huge impact in motivating a lot of otherwise Democrat voters to cross party lines and vote Republican.
Well, it was a big campaign issue for the Trump campaign. Do you think he'll follow through? And if so, what do you want him to do?
Well, we're certainly hoping he will follow through. He's been very vocal in stating many of the things he wants to do, that he wants to repeal Obama's anti-gun executive orders, and we would certainly support that wholeheartedly. He wants to repeal gun-free zones like the ones around military bases that have cost countless lives. We would like to see him remove the United States signature from the anti-gun UN treaty. And one of the positive things or proactive things that we would like to see is concealed carry reciprocity, which is something that we think is to 500,000 people of the home every year. You might remember the story about the former.
Having a little bit of a problem with. Just lean back a little bit. I think you're a little closer. Yeah, we're getting a breakup. But go ahead. Go back to the reciprocity thing.
Sorry, I was hearing what. Were you trying to say something, Perry? I was talking about a CNN reporter, Lynn Russell, who was traveling with her husband through the southwestern states, and they stopped into a Motel 6 for the night, and she went out to the car to get something. As she came back into the hotel room, an armed man forced his way in right behind. It was actually a Motel 6. Well, she's being held at gunpoint. Right about that point, her husband comes out of the shower, sees what's happening, grabs his firearm, shoots and kills the guy. Well, he runs out into the parking lot and later dies at the hospital. But certainly a clear case of guns saving lives. I mean, it's so clear that even a former CNN reporter can get it, right? But here's the issue that we face. They were able to have that firearm because of reciprocity agreements between the states as they were traveling from state to state. But the problem is that there's a patchwork system in our country. So you might be legal in one state, but not legal in another. It would be like getting married in Virginia, but then your marriage not being recognized in Kansas. I mean, it's that type, or having a driver's license in one state and not being able to drive into another state. That's the type of thing that Donald Trump wants to bring to an end, and we wholeheartedly support that. And so hopefully we'd like to see that on a fast track, get that done within the first 100 days.
All right. Given the list of Supreme Court justices that he said he would select from, I think there was 11 of them, are you aware of any of those being strong Second Amendment people?
Well, I think the list may be up to 20 now, and my understanding is that that list came from Heritage, the Heritage Foundation, which is a strongly constitutional organization. That's something that now that he's elected, we're going to be looking through that list even more carefully. But I would say as far as the default, those guys are probably going to be pretty solid. And I think we're even seeing that just in terms of many of the people that he's considering for his cabinet. Heck, the person he chose as his vice president, Mike Pence was actually the most pro-gun guy on any of the ballots as people went to go vote for president on November 8th, president or vice president. He was the strongest pro-gun choice there. So Donald Trump has been making some good picks, surrounding himself with a lot of good people. And we're very hopeful that he will stick to his word in appointing somebody who's a constitutionalist and certainly protects the Second Amendment. And I can promise you that if that weren't the case, if that didn't happen, we'll be activating our grassroots to say, not this person, but choose this person. But obviously we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Erich, God forbid that we'd have any more mass shootings, but if that does occur, how would you expect a President Trump to react to that?
Well, I think one thing we'll see is, unlike what President Obama did after many of the shootings, he would, get in front of the microphone, get in front of the cameras and say how, it's all the basic to keep and bear arms. It's the fault of gun owners for wanting this right, and that's the problem. We get a totally different perspective when Donald Trump speaks to this, and this is one of the areas where he's been real strong. Where after each of these past shootings, he said, "Look, there should have been more good guys with guns to shoot back. That would make a difference." I mentioned earlier repealing gun-free zones at military bases. Nidal Hassan, who shot up Fort Hood, fired off 220 rounds, and he did that with a pistol. I mean, he didn't have some, big firearm or rifle. He used a pistol to fire 220 shots. How does a guy do that on a military base? The reason he can do that is because it's a gun-free zone. You have to wait for the military police to show up. What that means is the intended victims, the people who are running for their lives, can't protect themselves. That's one of the things that Donald Trump wants to change. That's one of the things that Gun Owners of America has been advocating, a change like that for years. Sadly, that was put into force by executive order under Clinton. And so that's something that President Trump can obviously undo by simply repealing that.
So am I hearing you say, Erich, that your assurance that a President Trump will follow through with his Second Amendment promises basically will come through a Mike Pence?
Well, certainly Mike Pence, and I think the grassroots, because, let's face it, there were times when President Bush, albeit a Republican and generally did signed some good legislation. He allowed the ban on commonly owned semi-automatic firearms to expire in 2004. He signed another bill protecting the gun industry. But then there were other areas where he wasn't so good, and we had to apply a little bit of pressure, sometimes a lot of pressure. We're going to expect that type of thing is going to happen. But I do think the fact that Trump campaigned so aggressively on the Second Amendment issues. We did have some differences in some areas, but on things like shootings and mass shootings, he was 100% correct that what you need is basically to create the deterrent. Because obviously, if there's nobody there with a firearm, that's just the beautiful situation that any terrorist would want. They want to be the only one with a gun. That's what happened at the Orlando bar. Interestingly, a couple weeks after the Orlando shooting, there was an attempted shooting in a South Carolina bar. But guess what? It wasn't a gun-free zone. There was a concealed carry permit holder there who brought it to a stop instantaneously. That's how you stop these things from becoming mass shootings.
Well, Erich, good to see you, my friend. Thanks for all you do and the hard work you guys do. You can go to gunowners.org. That's their website, and it's an incredible resource, so check it out, gunowners.org. Thanks, Erich, and let's see what happens come January 20th and on. If all of this follows through, it looks like we're at least in position to get it done.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Perry.
All right, God bless you, Erich. Well, we'll be right back.